What is going on, Bucs fans and CFP fans? Evan Wanish here, back at you with another video talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And today we are finishing up our positional reviews for the 2024-25 season. So far, we've done just about every position group on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. If you want to go check those out, head on over to the Cannonfire Podcast YouTube channel and check them out. But today we are wrapping it up by combining the cornerbacks and the safeties. So I guess you could basically say this is a secondary review for the Buccaneers in the 2024-25 season. But with that being said, I'm not alone. Joining me for the final time in this series, appreciate him joining me for all the defensive side of things, Mr. James Hill, aka Mr. Bucs Nation. James, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. We're gonna end it off strong, okay? We're gonna end it off strong. I think it'll be a good time, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's some intrigue here, right? Because I think this is the one position where I think what the Bucs decide to do may annoy the fan base. Because I think the fan base for a long time has assumed that like the Bucs secondary is like the worst in the NFL and they have to get rid of everybody. And I just don't know if that's going to be the case. So we'll see. I do think there's going to be some changes, but we'll see. So in the cornerback room, we are going to start off there. It is Jamel Dean, Dallas Flowers, Tyreek Funderburk, Bryce Hall, Troy Hill, Zion McCollum, Josh Hayes, Tavier Thomas. So those guys are listed. Obviously, Hayes could play a little bit of safety probably. He's listed as a DB on the Bucs website. Safeties are Marcus Banks, Mike Edwards, who returned to the team mid-season, Christian Izien, Kayvon Merriweather, Ryan Neal, who also returned to the team mid-season. I guess it's just they just collect former safeties of theirs, right? Because Jordan Whitehead is also here, who returned to the team and last offseason. So Tyke Smith, who again listed as a safety, kind of plays that slot corner for them. Maybe as a position change. Who knows? Antoine Field Jr., we all know him, and Rashad Wisdom. So there's a lot of names there, right? And we're not going to break down each individual name. You're going to break down mostly the starters, right? Jamel Dean, Zion McCollum were your two starting corners for the most part. Tyke Smith, your starting nickel, with Jordan Whitehead and Antoine Field Jr. as your two safeties back there. What do you think of the secondary overall in the 2024-25 season? I know secondaries are very volatile. And there's a lot of things that go into it, and the Bucs secondary wasn't good. I want to make that clear, right? It wasn't very good, but I think it's a lot better than people assume it is.
I mean, on paper, it sounds great to me, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is that these guys can't stay healthy. I mean, Winfield had injury problems. Whitehead had injury problems. Jamel Dean had injury problems. Tyke Smith had injury problems.
Yeah.
Like these, in my opinion, are good players. Just can't stay healthy. I think Zion McCollum is still a number one corner. I think he hopefully can get a bag from the Bucs here in a year or two because I think he's very good. Jamel Dean, I like Dean. Okay. Did he take maybe a smidge of a step back the past like couple of years? Sure. But like he's still a good corner, especially whenever you look at Pro Football Focus numbers as well. The biggest issue with Dean is that he can't stay healthy, unfortunately, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Evan, I remember there was one injury report where my man had both of his knees on the injury report. That sounds awful, right? Like that's just brutal. But he's the guy that like you talked earlier about seeing some change. He could very well be on the way out. And it might just be because like, hey, we want to get healthier at the position. And that's understandable in my opinion. I like Tyke Smith at nickel a lot. He's somebody that I didn't necessarily like whenever they first drafted him, but me and you had talked about him a lot and you warmed me up to the idea on him and he played pretty well. Like, honestly, Evan, you could argue he was I don't even know if it's an argument. Like, he might have been the best member of the Buccaneers secondary this past season.
I think he probably was.
Like, in terms of making plays and whatnot, like he could get interceptions. He could force fumbles. He was a playmaker, man. So, like, I'm excited to see Tyke Smith in year 2. Winfield didn't have a good year. Whitehead didn't have a good year. And that was a combination of injuries and whenever those guys were out on the field, they just weren't playing that well. I think part of that was a communication issue. I remember one thing that always stuck with me was Bowles. I think at the time it was Josh Hayes and Tyreek Thunderberg were your two starting corners, and they were playing so far back. And Bowles kept on saying, like, no, we told him to play up. We told him to play up on the receivers. And it's like, okay, well, obviously something's going wrong in the communication here, right? And I feel like they may have had communication. This is just a theory, but I feel like they may have had communication problems throughout the entire season. So I feel like if they can communicate better, which is a very big thing for the secondary to have success on, I think we will see Winfield return to form. I think we can see Whitehead bounce back. He's another name that's been kind of tossed around as a potential cap casualty and whatnot. But like on paper, I like this group a lot, even in its current iteration, right? But they do need to get healthier, and also like maybe it is time for a change of scenery, right? In terms of maybe swapping out a Jamel Dean for, I don't know, like a Charvarius Ward or some other name that may be out there in free agency or whatnot. And maybe that's what it takes to kind of reinvigorate this group. But I do think a lot of these guys will return to form.
Yeah, I think the injury thing, obviously, and again, I say it all the time. There's a difference, right, between being a bad player and having a bad year, right? There's a difference, and I think case in point is Anthony Winfield Jr., right? Like, is Anthony Winfield Jr. a bad player? Of course not. Like, we've seen there's 5 years of work, right, or 4 years of work, whatever it may be, to prove that he is a good football player, right? Had a bad year. I think injuries really hampered him. He got hurt week 1, right? Got hurt, and unfortunately, it was at the end of week 1, where the game was done. Like, it didn't matter, unfortunately. He was in the game, ended up getting hurt and missed a couple weeks, and when he came back, it just wasn't really the same. Jordan Whitehead dealt with multiple injuries. Jordan Whitehead got into a car accident to end his season a couple weeks before. I Bleav it was either the week before, it was the second to last week of the season, or it might have been the regular season finale, one of those things. It was very late, though, in the season. So luckily, he's okay. That was the most important part, but it meant that he was going to miss the rest of the regular season. He was a free agent disappointment, right? I mean, he was. I think there were higher expectations for Jordan Whitehead, and that's why you're hearing about him potentially being a cap casualty here, because the Bucs might be needing every dollar they can get to re-sign a Chris Godwin or add a pass rusher or a top corner. And Jamel Dean's another guy who you're going to hear about, right? If the Bucs can save a little over $8 million by cutting or trading Jamel Dean. So maybe he's a guy just like they did last offseason with Carlton Davis. Is Jamel Dean a similar situation there where they can find a trade partner for him? Maybe that makes some sense. But I do think the Jamel Dean hate is it goes a little bit too far. And I agree with you. Like, was this like his best year? No, like it wasn't, like production wise. But I do think there's a lot of people out there that think he's just like awful. And I don't see it. I think the Bucs can do a lot worse. I think the Bucs now, again, are really hoping Zion McCollum takes another jump, right? I think he did make a jump in 2024. There was a jump there from year 1 to year 2, right? He's entering his 3rd season. So I think you're hoping year 3 is a big year, right? I think that's what you're hoping from Zion McCollum there. And then you're hoping for bounce backs from Anthony Winfield Jr., right? And Jordan Whitehead if he's on the team, Jamel Dean if he's on that team. You're hoping that Tyke Smith can develop. And I know that when we talk about the pass rush, right, we're like, well, I don't think you can hope that, right? You just can't do that. It's a little bit different with this situation for a couple reasons. One, Anthony Winfield Jr., when he's on, is one of the best safeties in the entire NFL. The Bucs don't have a pass rusher like that, where it's like, oh, if this guy's on, he's one of the best pass rushers in the league. That's a little bit different, right? That's where the difference comes in. So I think if they get a bounce back from Winfield, I do expect them to add. Right. I don't think they're just going to completely ignore it, especially if they end up waiving or cutting Jamel Dean, Jordan Whitehead. Like, they're definitely going to add. But even if one or both those guys stay, I expect them to add at least somebody at that spot. You can never have enough depth. And we'll have to wait and see. Just like you mentioned, injuries were a big thing. All right. Tyreek Thunderberg, I think, played way more than they wanted him to. All right. All due respect to Tyreek Thunderberg. Josh Hayes, same thing. Played way more than they wanted him to. And they were exposed for it, unfortunately. So I do think you'll see maybe some veteran depth added, maybe a couple of draft picks as well. And the Bucs could go out and sign a Charvarius Ward. Like you said, maybe that's what they view, right? Cutting Jamel Dean, moving on from him and signing Ward, who I think would be a pretty good fit in Tampa Bay for what he likes to do and what Todd Bowles likes to do. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about the secondary. What changes do you think need to be made there? Tyke Smith potentially going from nickel to safety. If Jordan Whitehead is cut, that could be an option, right? That's why I sort of mentioned, a positional change there potentially for Tyke Smith there. Although I liked him enough at nickel, and I just don't know if you'd want to mess with a good thing like that. So we'll have to wait and see. But let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thank you all for watching this video. Thank you to James for joining me throughout this entire series here on the defensive side of things. Go check out his channel at Mr. Bucs Nation as he drinks the Pepsi. Cheers to that, my friend. But thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And go Bucs.